On this episode of the Law Firm Marketing Podcast, we continue the discussion with networking specialist Robyn Henderson, and we drop in on Robert Algieri, the director of one of the United States' leading web design companies just for law firms. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Law Firm Marketing Podcast, brought to you by Australia's leading law firm marketing company, Grow Your Firm. If you're serious about marketing your law firm, then the integrated marketing approach of Grow Your Firm, which is working for a growing number of law firms, might just work for you. Now, you can visit Grow Your Firm at www.growyourfirm.com.au, and if you're overseas, make sure you remember the .au at the end of that URL. The other thing I wanted to allude listeners to was the Law Firm Marketing Masters series of podcasts, which has brought together literally the world's best law firm marketing and management experts in over 8 hours of exceptional content. You can pre-register now at the Law Firm Marketing Masters website as the doors open late next week. Now, pre-registration is at lawfirmmarketingmasters.com. That is www.lawfirmmarketingmasters.com. Robert Algieri of Great Jakes, the web design company based in Manhattan in New York, needs no introduction to many of us. Robert and of course his brother Dion are veteran entrepreneurs who in their work within Great Jakes have worked with many leading international law firms, both in the US and in Europe. Here's an excerpt of my conversation with Robert, which is a small part of a bigger conversation I had with him for the Law Firm Marketing Masters series of podcasts.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share with you our 10 tips. Just a little bit of background about...
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah. A little bit of background about us. We're a marketing communications firm. We're based out of Manhattan, New York, and we've been building websites for a long time, for close to 15 years, and law firm websites for nearly a decade. But you know what happened was that in 2009, the Great Recession happened. Yeah. And I don't know what it was like there, but here in the U.S., it really shook the foundations for law firms and how law firms do business. And what we observed was that there was now a new business landscape for law firms. And this gave us an opportunity to take a step back and really take a good hard look at what law firms were doing with their websites, and in light of the Great Recession. And one thing that really became clear to us is we came to realize that the websites that we had been building for law firms and those that every other company serving law firms were building, they were going to become obsolete. Yeah. And this new business landscape was really changing things. And
what do you mean by this change? What was going on in the business landscape that really prompted law firms to think differently? I mean, apart from the recession, was it the fact that firms now had to start to think innovatively to try and secure a client?
That is definitely one of those things. One of the first things we saw was, there were a lot of tech-savvy lawyers out there. Yeah. Now, if you look back at the beginning of that decade, we were taking meetings with law firms. They were still getting up to gear on email. But towards the end of that decade, in 2009, let's say, 2008, you had a lot of tech-savvy lawyers. As a matter of fact, there were a lot of attorneys, let's call them the 40-somethings. They had spent their entire business career getting comfortable with technology. Yeah, true. So they weren't afraid. They weren't afraid of this. As a matter of fact, their expectations for things like their websites were pretty high. But the key thing was now these guys, these attorneys, these men and women were becoming partners, and they were able to start dictating how the firm should be thinking about their technology. And one of the things that was driving them is that they saw that their clients' expectations were as high as theirs or higher.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things.
Big impact.
Yeah. Another thing was that, clients were more willing to consider working with attorneys that were outside of their immediate geographic area. For a variety of technological and cultural reasons, clients were now able to find an attorney with just the right skill set to solve their particular issue. So it didn't matter that if they were, it used to be that an attorney would find a client within 25 miles of their office.
Yeah.
But now that doesn't matter as much. Technology's broken down that distance barrier. Now a client will go and find just the right attorney no matter where they're located. So here in the United States, that could be, in another part of the state or 2 states over or across the country or in another country.
Yeah.
And I think, Canadian firms are really taking advantage of this right now. I think that's a great thing. So we're seeing that. And then, social media,
It's huge, isn't it?
It's massive, and when you look at it, when you think back, it's not too long ago, but let's say take 2008. Things like blogs and LinkedIn and Twitter, these didn't even factor into the mix, the marketing mix. Now you cannot be considering law firm marketing without including these into the marketing mix. A little fact, and I have to verify this, but the exact numbers here. But in 2008, there were 118,000 attorneys on LinkedIn. By this year, there's probably close to 2 million here in the United States. I should say
exponential growth. It's massive.
Yeah, especially for something like the law industry.
Yeah, absolutely. They're always the late adopters, aren't they? Well, typically lawyers are late adopters. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and what's driving all this? This is this new business landscape. There's, the economy is tough. It's put new pressures on firms and attorneys to think differently. And what we're seeing is that attorneys are becoming more entrepreneurial. And they're finding that to get the lucrative bet the company work that they want, to get those clients, they have to think differently. And they're embracing things like social media and other technology tools. And it's changing the way business is getting done for law firms. So I guess the big overview that we're seeing, because we develop websites, is that the law firm websites are going to become a whole lot more valuable. They're going to become as important as face-to-face meetings. So, it used to be, what's happening is that the face-to-face meetings are occurring less and less.
Yeah.
Technology, things like, we've gotten 100 years of the telephone and coupled that with 15 years of the internet plus 5 years of Facebook. We've come a long way, and we've all learned how to